There's a time when the company that I was working for was doing really well, super well. We were complaining as employees about salary adjustments and we wanted more money. Then the director calls me to his office and he's like, no, listen, take a sit here. He's like, you see the logo on that wall? That's the company logo. I'm like, yes. He's like, when I thought of that thing, I didn't have you in mind. I wouldn't really want to blame the young people entirely because it's a whole ecosystem that needs to come together to support these business ideas. You just need to know when to give up because you're passionate about it. You just want to keep putting your effort into it, but the market doesn't want what you're producing. Now, you can't even then tell your spouse, for example, that you love them because it's just not, it doesn't feel manly enough. Young people can have brilliant ideas, but there's no support for it. If I want to get a loan from the bank, they'll tell me, bring a house with title deeds. Now, you're staying in a landlord's property. You can't go to the landlord and ask for title deeds. So now you're going to say that automatically the bank is now out. This is where the money conversation also needs to lead to, because there's something called black tax. And we're not taught about it up until it hits you in the face. It's identifying all these key individuals within the communities that we live in and then supporting them. We never walk into a supermarket and negotiate prices. You know, the price that's quoted is what you pay. Do the same for the ladies there. In your mind, the investors are the adults. And you're standing, now they are sitting on a panel and you are standing. Already that defeats you because you were taught never to stand and address adults.
What's one of the biggest financial mistakes you've made in your personal life?
That one. When I say this, and my wife's gonna hear it now and she's gonna be like, I told you, and she keeps telling me I made a mistake then.
So, ladies and gentlemen, press the subscribe button. We're about to get into it. Today I'm joined by Patrick Maseko, head executive for innovation at ZB Bank. Did you work out this morning?
No, I did not. Not at all. I haven't been to the gym in a while.
Welcome to the show. This is a bold exchange where we are trying to actually push ideas that make our society and our communities better. First question, this is my first time meeting you, so I'm a bit of a fan of your work, and meeting you just like 5 minutes ago, like you sound like, and you seem like a well-rounded human being. Tell me what makes you become the kind of man that you are, and like what upbringing then puts you at this point where you're like, you're polite, humble, easygoing guy.
I like the way you say polite and humble because I wouldn't consider myself that, but if it's coming from you, I think it's something that we can work with and believe in. But the background is a fairly simple one. Grew up in Bulawayo. That's where home is. That's where my mom is. My dad's late. Went to school there, high school, Plumtree. Tegwane High School, came back, did my university at NAS, studied applied maths, started my working career in stockbroking, moved from stockbroking into management consulting, from management consulting into banking, transitioning now into innovation. So I think that's pretty much my employment history and my high school background. So I had been a sciences person, now I'm working for finance. So that in its own is quite a humbling experience because how you move from sciences to start working in finance is just a transition on its own, and then moving now into innovation, which is fairly new. I mean, we speak about innovation a lot, but it's fairly new in our environment. So when we speak about innovation, we're talking about how we're then just come up with the new ideas. So there aren't too many courses that one can attend for that. So we're pretty much learning as we go along. So I think that's pretty much how I land at where I am now, and it's been an exciting journey.
So speaking of innovation, right? Like when we speak of innovation, we talk, we'll get to the innovation part, but when you speak of innovation, that means that you deal with a lot of young people, right? And like where I want to like take this story from is in your interaction with young people, like we grew up, like Kola Machita will be like, no, they're like, in America, they probably would call them OGs. And what's your take and your opinion on the current breed of young men that are coming up, and and what you're seeing in society? I'm sure you're not in the office 24/7 interacting.
No,
and then
yeah.
Like, what's your take on the young men out there?
It's broad, and I'd like to take it also from where we also just began as a young man, and just aspiring to then be following the footsteps of other people, where you'd see people that we thought were successful, and probably were in their own rights, but we didn't know how they began. So, you just see someone, they're successful, and you want to emulate or walk in their footsteps. And so you just start having meetings with them, you follow up. How did you get to where you are? Sometimes you don't get the answers that you want to get because not everyone began the way that you think they began. And some people just can't attribute where their success really began. So it's a difficult story to then speak about. So when I look at the young people now, I think it's pretty much the same thing as well. When I say young people now, as if I'm very old, but there are people that are younger than me that look at me now and still think that we also want to do what you have done. And the stories are still the same. Everyone is now trying to say, so-and-so has been successful. We want to see how they have achieved that success. We want to get to where they are in their path. And the drive is still pretty much the same. In terms of how I see the younger guys in business and in innovation, in entrepreneurship, in the different fields that they are running, the drive is pretty much the same. The environment might not allow for the guys to be doing what they need to be doing, but then I think that passion is still there. We have it, the will is there, the passion is there, the economy, the society might slap you in the face, but then you find that they still want to journey on. So they'll still try to build the connections, they'll still try to build the contacts, they'll still try to then probably leave the country, do what they're doing, and then come back and feed into the economies back home. So in my circles, I find that whenever they leave the country to try and launch an innovative idea, they still come back and want to say, how can we still do this back home?
True.
So you like that, if I may call it patriotism, where they still want to come back and say, I still want to do this back home because at the end of the day, I'm Zimbabwean, and they still want to work to improve the situation back home. So I like that a lot about what the young people are doing.
So you've got capped for the mathematics part at NUST, and so at what point does the bugs to say, let me leave this place and migrate to whether out of the country or different city, or at what point do you then make this decision up to say, I want to leave where I come from? And
You mean as a young person?
Yeah, as a young person, like after varsity, let's go through the step. Until you get to where you are, what steps did you take at that point? What made you say, you know what, I think I like stocks and trading, and yeah.
For me, it was pretty much everything by default. It
wasn't intentional.
I don't want to say I planned anything that happened to me in my life. I think most of it just fell into place. There's luck. There's just being at the right place at the right time. So this is what I was also speaking about when you asked to then say, what do the young people look for? And I was saying that it's difficult because some people can't tell you how they got to where they are. I did applied maths by default. Maths was my best symbol at A level. I got a B in maths. The other ones I'll not mention, but that allowed me entry into NUST. I did my applied mathematics at NUST, and at the time that I studied, I think the syllabus was skewed more towards industry.
All right.
And not finance, like manufacturing, inventory management, reorder points, and all those things. That's what we did predominantly. And then stockbroking was just purely by coincidence. My uncle happened to be in Harare, as Natilama drinks Sake Oasis, bumped into some gentleman that was working for a stockbroking company. They swapped business cards. He came back home and is like, Mzukulu, fonela umuntu lo if you want attachment. And then I called, they're like, no, Sfungu kubona where Harare. I came to Harare for the first time. And that was pretty much the interview. They're like, Siyakufuna, come in. And then I started doing my attachment there. And then the rest, company folded about 8 years later because I finished my attachment, went back, did my final year, came back, worked for the same company, worked there for about 5 years. The company then closed, and then I went into management consulting. So I can't say that I had planned anything that I've done so far, but the pieces have just fallen into place. And given where I'm coming from and where I am now, I think it all came together for a reason. Because I understand what happens within the stock market now. I understand management consulting. So when I speak to entrepreneurs now, I know what systems you need to put in place in your business. And then I understand the banking side of things because I also had a long stint at CABS for about 10 years where we dealt with the youth fund. Funded a number of youth projects that were across the country in all 10 provinces, and 52 or 54 of the districts. We went down to all the grassroots and got to understand what the young entrepreneurs were doing. So just to answer the question directly, I can't put a finger on it. My life just pretty much fell into place, leading to where I am now.
And speaking on what you touched about like going and working with the young people, right? Like everyone's got a crazy idea. Me, I want to print t-shirts per se, you know what I mean? And start a t-shirt business or start this application that you can deliver whatever you want to get delivered, right? What is the main problem that we face, because most of those businesses then tank, right? Like the idea will be brilliant. I remember, I think it was an innovation hub whereby these guys were created this idea to create armor roofing tiles of recycled material, and I'm like, yo, this is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
But how come these businesses fail, or they fail to take off? It's like probably 1 year, 2 year, and then they crash. What are the young people getting wrong, and what are young entrepreneurs getting wrong when it comes to that?
Okay, I wouldn't really want to blame the young people entirely, because it's a whole ecosystem that needs to come together to support these business ideas.
Right.
Maybe the only thing that I can say could be their fault is giving up too early. You just need to know when to give up at times also, because sometimes you can pursue an idea that just doesn't make sense.
All right.
And because you're passionate about it, you just want to keep putting your effort into it, but the market doesn't want what you're producing. So then you can just get advice and be told to give up. But the ecosystem needs to come together. So you'll find that young people can have brilliant ideas, but there's no support for it, largely on the funding side of things. Very few people can come through and fund startup ideas. If you go to any financial institution, what they'll want to see is, if you're an SME, your 3-year financials, immovable collateral, it has to be a building with title deeds so that they can register a bond over it, and just a whole lot of other requirements that the young people don't have. So it then becomes difficult as a young person also to then say that I'll go to my parents and ask for their title deed to then put up for the business idea. You can't do that.
And then your parents are looking at you like,
No,
for
yeah.
what? For a mobile application?
Okay. So that's the challenge. I think it's largely the support. And then uzathola ukuthi abanye also just are passionate about ideas that they have not validated in the market. You spoke about the solar roof tiles and all those other tiles. Yes, there could be a market for that, but who are you targeting precisely?
True.
Because the ordinary person on the street might not see value in that. They'll just get a solar system, fit it in, and it will be okay. There are certain individuals. Now, you need to know who your funders are, which people are interested in that kind of green energy project, and then target those and tailor make your pitch towards those possible funders. Because if you just go and sell your idea to anyone and everyone, not everyone has the same interest and is enthusiastic about your idea as you are. And that's one thing that I always tell the young people as well, to say that just because you're excited about it doesn't mean that the funders are as well. So you just need to make sure that you're speaking to the pain points that the funders have. When you can address that, it then becomes a bit easier to get the funding. And this is why I also said earlier that a lot of the young people end up leaving the country because of that, because even the institutions locally that you'd expect to support the young people are quite focused on systems that they already have in place. So it then becomes difficult to then experiment and take on a young idea. Yeah. So you'll find that they'll tell you that we've already got this and it's running, and it's what they know to operate. To then take a chance on a young person becomes a bit of a challenge. So there might need to be a culture change where you also then encourage large corporates, as we know them in Zimbabwe, to then say that, we'll take a chance on the young people, have a budget for these innovative ideas that then come through, and then we can support them.
And what are some of the greatest takeaways when you went to the States, and then you found how probably angel investors actually invest in businesses compared to this side? Like what's the difference that side? Because this side, it feels like, even the people, when you talk of funding, right, it feels like someone who wants to fund you in Zim is saying, or you said you will sell fuel or you will sell chicken. Okay, no, this one we can fund. We know people want fuel and chicken, but this green energy. So what was the difference in those two different spaces when it comes to the culture of funding? Yeah.
For starters, I think the money just is there. In the States, they've got a whole lot of patient capital. You've got wealthy people that have made it, they're post-retirement, they have just made their money and they want to give back to community. So they start giving donations to either organizations that can fund young people or just, out of philanthropic work. And then they just want to give back to the communities that they are coming from. So you also find that there are also issues to do with tax. I might not want to get into that, to say corporates then have certain tax benefits if they've got certain monies that they then just give towards young people and innovation. So the system itself allows for that. But then you also find that there's a lot of collaboration between centers where young people are found, like the universities and organizations that need research and development work done. So you've got a university that's partnered with an organization. One of the interesting ones that I came across was Texas Instruments, that was partnered with, I think it was Dallas Community College. So you get employees from Texas Instruments going through to Dallas to go and learn robotics. And that relationship between the university or the college and the institution is a key one for further research and development. So all those ecosystems, which is what I mentioned earlier also, to say when the ecosystem comes together, then young people can then have a fighting chance, because you'll find that biotechnology, for example, if I'm a young person interested in biotech, where do I go? If I want to do DNA testing, I know I might go to the university at NAS because they've got a brilliant DNA center there. And then can they take me if I haven't been part of the university before?
That's another
thing as well, because you'll find that the young guys now are teaching themselves how to code.
Yeah.
And they're brilliant, but they don't have degrees. So can we employ them now in corporate? Because the minimum qualification will be a degree. So those kinds of attitudes may need to change to then say that, okay, he's passionate about this at this age. And then you just take him under mentorship, take him to university, to college, or whatever the case may be, depending on what you then require, and then have them study, and then they come back to you with the solutions, because you don't want to kill the creativity in them because they haven't had a chance to go to uni.
Interesting. So, like, tell me, like, when you talk about like how do you feel like our education system, or how we are actually nurturing these guys, is it conducive for people to actually then are we preparing these guys for a world that will exist by the time they actually get there, or by the time they get there they'll be like stuck with a psychology degree that like people will be looking at you like, yo, like are we moving in the right direction, or we are actually going the opposite direction?
I think we're on the right path. It's an interesting question that you ask on education, because we keep having these debates with the universities all the time. I collaborate with them a lot. They're key ecosystem players in innovation. You know, you've got various institutions that need to come into one place to then help with the entrepreneurs. So you'll find that education is changing, and I'm seeing it change. And the people responsible for running the universities have also acknowledged that, to then produce graduates that are relevant for the future and into the spaces that we now want to get into. So the content is changing within universities. More work may need to be done so that, it continues to be relevant, and then the graduates can find a place to land within industry. But it's a double-edged sword. You'll find that industry itself also needs to change with the times, because it's one thing to produce a future-fit graduate that goes into a workplace environment that is still operating on legacy systems. So industry needs to upgrade as well, so that the skills that are being taught in universities can come back and they can find a place to be actually utilized. Because I've seen situations where, people come out of college and they go into the workplace environment, they have to relearn old systems. And that's bad. So these things need to move in tandem. You need to have industry going with the times as well as the students themselves being taught how to then use more modern systems. So I think it's that's the way that this needs to be handled. But I'm happy to say that, the realization is there, at least from what I've seen in the interactions that I've had and all the conversations I've had in these institutions, to say that we need students that are future fit.
And I want to take you to the streets a bit. I know you're in a suit, but let me take you to the streets a bit, right? I want to take you to, like that stretch from like just Mbare by the Flesh there.
Yeah.
Right? Uh-huh. How much money is circulating within our informal sector in this country? Like, yo, guess it is not you. Like, it's busy. No, guys, we can't. Why is this money just not even somewhere in a bank, or why is this thing not formalized into because like our university industry, but you go there, industry on its own is an industry, and what can we do about that kind of situation?
That's another interesting question, because imali esembare laphana in just informal sector, in fact hikubule mali khona. Hikubule mali khona. And uzathola ukuthi most of the local currencies probably used by thina esisebenza ku formal sector isikhathi esiningi, and then usiyathenga from your retail shop. But then uzathola abantu abaku informal economy rarely would walk into your established retail shop, your Pick and Pay to go and buy. They will buy from other tuck shops in those areas that sell in US dollars as well. So uzathola that's where the bulk of the money is. Now, there are reasons why this has also happened, because, I think people have been burnt quite a lot, and as I told you, financial institutions also may not have products that speak to that kind of economy. If I bring my money to the bank, let's say $100, for example, I want to be able to withdraw $100.
True.
But then because there are charges and, these are acceptable, they still can't operate like that. So Umuntu will prefer to keep money at home. because they know that it's not losing value at home. Fine, it may be stolen, but it's not losing value at home. So I know that my $100 this week is going to be $100 next week when I now want to go and pay for whatever service I'm going to be paying for. And because they've got no time to leave their businesses as well, ezotenga at town or buy, from some clothing boutique in town. They will also then buy from, the shops or the ladies that sell clothing outside there in that ecosystem. So the money will continue to circulate within that ecosystem. It's going from Unazbani to Sazbani, who's selling steel, who's selling furniture, who's selling clothes, who's selling this. It's all operating within that ecosystem. And it never really finds its way into the banks unless they need to pay for council services, for example, utility bills, as ZESA, you need to pay for your sewage and refuse collection. That's when the money then comes into a formal system. But the bulk of it is just circulating in that economy.
And I like there's something that you said that got me thinking. Why do you think that there is this disparity and this gap between the financial institution and the guy on the street? Why aren't we able to communicate? Like you said, like it doesn't even speak to the guy on the street. Like, how come our financial institutions are not speaking the language of the guys in the formal sector? Like it's always been like a something that I've wondered. Like, why is that happening? How come we don't speak the same language?
Okay. First case in point, where we may depart from is the fact that financial institutions are regulated.
All right.
Banks are regulated by the RBZ. You've got insurance companies that are also regulated by their regulatory bodies. Stock market is also regulated by the ZSE. So you've got financial institutions that operate in a regulated environment. By so doing, it only means that also your products need to be verified to then say that, you can launch a product like this if the regulator then approves of that product, because it needs to make financial sense and keep some form of stability within the economy. So that's the umbrella within which financial institutions operate. And then you've got the informal sector that may not be able to live up to the requirements
of the umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. So if I come, for example, for argument's sake, and say that minimum required investment for the ZSE is $10, let's say, and then you've got an informal sector guy who says, I've got $5 and I want to invest, and he can't do it already, that separates the two ecosystems. In the financial economy, financial services sector rather, if I want to get a loan from the bank, they'll tell me, bring a house with title deeds. Now, you're staying in a landlord's property. You can't go to the landlord and ask for title deeds. So now you're going to say that automatically the bank is now out. You may choose to deal with MFIs, which are your microfinance institutions that may take your stove.
I'm a loan shark. Let's go on. I like how you placed that.
It's an MFI. Yeah. All right. I'm a loan shark. Yeah. So they can take your stove. All they can take, your car or something and then hold on to it. Now and they can take all those things and hold on to them. So at least that is now giving access to informal sector for financial services. So I think it just depends on the level of access that you then require. If it's a bank, it's going to be very difficult. If it's a microfinance organization, it becomes a bit easier. And you also like the fact that within the microfinance industry, there are certain ethics that they also employ. For example, they'll not come and ask you to put up your bed as collateral because you need to sleep. Yeah. I mentioned the stove, yes, but they will not take the stove. Most organizations, because melupege, and you need to cook and eat. So they won't take your fridge, they won't take your stove, they won't take your bed. You need to eat, sleep, and rest. That's okay. So other things, your sofas, yes, you can put that up as collateral for a microfinance loan. So I think there's some level of access that's coming through. And I'm sure banks are also working on how they can then penetrate that sector of the economy, because it's the largest and there's no way it can continue to be ignored.
Do you think we as a people talk enough about money? Because like just we as a people, I just avoided to say black people, but I said we as a people, do you think we talk enough about money in all aspects? And do you think we teach our kids enough about money? Because I can have this conversation with you, right? And be like, yo, Joe, so like, and then we sorting is so one. Ever notice that the conversation starts to like drag and come slow when now we're about to say good. So imali or how are we gonna split it? Why is that?
Yeah. No, I think we don't talk enough about money. We know enough about it to get on, to know that, okay, but as far as then going into business is concerned, we don't talk enough about that. And I think it's also because there isn't enough money that's just circulating in the hands of people to then risk it by then starting a business. That's why you mentioned what you mentioned now. Uti singavumelana ngathi sithi asifreeze amanzi la sithengise next time kule event International Sports Stadium. Bese sithi ubuyele malini. And then I'm thinking that I don't trust you enough.
It becomes a bit offensive. Even ubuza umuntu imali, it becomes offensive. Like I don't know why are you offended by money to a certain extent? It's like there's this attitude that we have towards money that's yo Patrick show. That 1,000 or you'll start pottery. Like
it's like it's a taboo conversation because conversation lay would not have it. School a lot and parents would never discuss finances with us as children. Maybe now the parents these days can do that and help the kids understand. Okay, listen, we've got this money. It's for this. It's for this. It's for this. This is your tuck money for school. We are budgeting for holiday. We're going to go and do all these things. But growing up, we never had these conversations with our parents. Parents would come home, bring money, and the food is there. Talk. You don't ask.
Even if a visitor gives you money, you can't even then ask back that money.
So we never had a relationship with money growing up. And these are things that we're learning as we go along now. So to answer the question that you asked before, the conversation isn't there at a very significant level. And I think it's because of that upbringing. So, right? And then you'd come into and lay pocket money. You'd never even see how it was paid. So now this side of life, now you still have that kind of thinking, imali should be treasured. It's a sacred thing. When it comes, you can't risk money, use it responsibly. So I will always use money on things that are responsible. I'll pay the school fees, I'll pay the bills, I'll pay the rent, I'll do all these things. But holiday, you know what I mean?
You're going to get cheap labor somehow so that things happen.
I'm for literally cooking oil is out kind of thing. So we need to now view money differently. I think the conversation now needs to just mature into something different to then say that, money isn't the end of it. Money is a means to maybe what you want to then acquire. In the past, there was barter trade. People will trade using different goods, but now we're using money as that medium of exchange. So it can't buy you happiness. I know we talk about this all the time, but use it for certain things that just make your life comfortable. And don't give it so much weight that doesn't belong to it. Just respect money because it comes and goes. And you need to use it responsibly also. But then we just need to change our attitude towards it and the conversations we have around it.
Do you loan money to your family? Like not your immediate family, like your malumes and stuff. Do you loan them money?
No, I don't. I don't loan them money. I give them responsibly also. Because it's another thing that we can talk about. It being black tax.
All right.
It's interesting, and this is where the money conversation also needs to lead to, because there's something called black tax. And we're not taught about it up until it hits you in the face. So growing up, you're told you go to college, you're given your rent. Let's say you're renting you leave Bulawayo, you come here, you use it, you're renting your apartment, you're getting money for food and all these things. The parents are sending you money and you're taking care pretty much of yourself. And then you start working. The minute you start working, so to support now, primary. That's black tax now, but you're not prepared for that. You've only recently started working, and now you're looking after this your siblings. Or you get married, you move into your whatever roomed apartment, and then so talk to also attachment Harare. You're a new couple. You know what I mean? And now suddenly you've got another life that you're taking care of in the house, and that already is black tax, and we don't learn much about that and how to handle it. So when you asked to say, do I loan money to relatives? I don't necessarily do that. I would give, yes.
But you pay your annual black tax.
Yes, you pay the annual black tax. But you also do it responsibly. Because now so in the family, we are like, if I take this guy through college and uzanceda, if I take this person through this course, he can become independent. So you want to educate one person, and then
you can
you take one other person.
Take care of the other guys.
Yes, take one other person. If you can do that as a system, and then everyone else can then understand, okay, now for this year, this is what I'm taking care of. For this year, this is what I'm taking care of. It becomes a bit more responsible. And then no one then just takes it for granted to know, it's not that simple. And he's got kids that are also looking up to him. Do we need to take care of family? Yes, we do. But you also now need to do that responsibly.
Do you feel like, and I know people are going to kill me for this on Twitter, but do you feel like the black tax is the one that, I understand the whole concept of Ubuntu and everything, and like Sakangane Kwakava and all that, right? But do you feel like the black tax actually then draws us back from it. We are already starting on minors, while at least someone else is starting on a plus. Whether it's then, or like what you're saying, to like access to, say, mortgages and stuff like that. Because by the time when so send a scholar for 4 years, it's a degree, right? This person is already like probably paying 4 years in their mortgage and stuff like that. So do you feel like it's a disadvantage to us as a community?
Now, I'm going to answer that so that your Twitter following doesn't kill you.
All right.
No, I don't think it's a disadvantage. Black tax is a term that's just been coined. I think black tax started in South Africa, and that's a term that's been coined. But like you said, ubuntu law.
Yeah.
Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. You don't just grow up in isolation. Even growing up, we would get beaten up by people that weren't our parents.
We didn't even know.
On the streets. You didn't even know them. And you said something bad on the street, the guy parks his car. Like, I heard you say this, beat you up. And if you want to make noise, he comes into your home and waits for your parents to tell them. So we're raised by communities. So coming from such a background, it only makes sense that I need to give back as well. People made sacrifices before us to get us through school. And people now, of course, might want to argue and say, and all these things. I mean, these are just wayward kids that may say stuff like that. But you'll find that because we grew up in these communities now, it's our responsibility to go back and give as well and raise the community as we are rising as well. So I don't think black tax is an entirely bad thing. I'm just saying that now we need to be educated about it to then say that, listen, as you go out and as you become successful, remember, and you now need to go back to the grassroots.
Like, I like the way you are so you love your. I like the way you love your community so much that you always talk about it. I was listening to you talk about how you meant to cultivate your communities. What are some of the solutions that you think communities can bring up? Because I always tell people, yes, we can wait for policy and government and whatever, but I think the real actual work starts with a certain community coming together and saying, let's do this. Because at the end of the day, you just and we won't wait for someone who's staying in Chihota to come in. So what are some of the things that we could do as communities to actually just get ourselves out of some of the messes that we're in, whether it's financially and.
Okay, I think that's an important question, because I think we just need to do, and by just doing, I'm saying we just do anything and everything, because there are certain things that are within our power to handle and do. For example, I'll just give a simple example of the communities that we live in. If there's garbage at the corner, who's responsible for that? Government has got nothing to do with that.
Oh, yeah.
The local city council has got nothing to do with me coming out of my house and dumping papers at the corner. That's our responsibility. And when we as a community begin to take care of the small things like that, then you improve the status of the communities that we live in. Just make sure that your garbage is collected and correctly disposed, for example. Make sure that you're raising the kids in the community. I stay at, for example, along a crescent. The kids that are growing up in that small micro community, just make sure that they're playing well together. And then they know that they can go to so-and-so's house and get the right career guidance and stuff like that. But now, because of the Jura walls that we put between our houses, now we're no longer as communal as we think we are.
Like, like young couple and like we grew up in areas whereby you could get umpinchis, but like, and I think we're just building these small boxes for ourselves and like we're caging ourselves, and I think that's
kind of in a way destroying the community fabric. But there are reasons, obviously, that why all this is happening. It's for security. The values that I want to raise my children on might not be the same values that I share lo makelwane. So there are reasons why people are doing this. But you'll find also that in doing so, now the kids become more isolated. They don't know who their neighbors are. And I've had many cases like that where, you live in one community, but you've never interacted with your neighbor. And you start seeing relatives coming and you're like, when's and you're like, no, they have passed away. But your neighbors, and you don't know this. So I think that communal fabric has just kind of deteriorated because of all these things that society has now become. But just going back to your question also, I think these are some of the things that I don't know if it's possible now to strengthen this again because of how far we have come away from that model where in the past we used to live and work together well. Yeah. And I'll sleep at my neighbor's house and it would be normal.
Like I grew up Eluveve Kwabalanda, and I think my mom had Imperial Society.
Yes.
And and the funny thing, that was a crazy, like I always tell people this, like that financial institution used to work. Like and they wouldn't get buried. Like and I was like, and the math, and the funny thing, I remember they used to bank with Beverly, I think, at that time, and
Those are some of the solutions that we can continue to build on in the communities to then say, kule burial society, kule club ibo mama abapheke emfeni, labapheke emtshatweni. There's someone in the community that has a tent for these things and stuff like that. So there's a plumber in the community as well that you can support. So it's identifying all these key individuals within the communities that we live in and then supporting them so that, like you said, support the plumbers in that area, support the electrician in that area, support the umamoting samatamati sekone. You don't have to go to town and then buy from on your way home. Just the lady, because where she sends her kids to school.
You know where the money is going directly.
Yeah. And I say this because now, it's relating more to high density communities, because in the lower density, the northern suburbs, and you will not find many of these women selling tomatoes at the corners and stuff like that. And that's a totally different community that we can address separately. But where the bulk and the masses of the people live, that's the kind of mindset that we now need to develop to then say that if I buy from this lady, I'm going to buy, and you don't negotiate now, say, which is on a banana imali nengcela $1 for 5, tenga $1 for 4 when. Oh, don't say I want an basket. No, because that's where they make their money. We never walk into a supermarket and negotiate prices. The price that's quoted is what you pay. Do the same for the ladies there.
I'm sure you've walked into enough rooms where the way you're treated because of your skin color is different from the way someone else is treated. Not from a racist point of view, but from your fellow black brother. Ukuthi when I now thengisa something to a fellow black brother, right? Let's say it's going for $20 and the umlungu is $30. When umdomnyame $20, umdomnyame asithi, "Hi Patrick, angeke ngithenge into yakho nge$20, but umlungu the very same thing uzayithenga nge$30 yena le." Like, why is it that we trust white people more than we trust black folk? And I'm sure you've experienced it somewhere, somehow, in life in general.
I wouldn't really say I've experienced it, but I know what you're talking about. And I want to extend it beyond even skin color to the fact yokuthi, if I know you and ungumuntu weluve vela pesakhulela khona, for example, for argument's sake, I'll be like, I can't trust this person. But then I can come to Arad and trust someone totally different. So it's beyond even just the skin color. And I think this just boils down to, because if we make it a skin color thing to then say uthi leli likiwa ikiwa lathembakala, look, I think it's just the remnants of colonialism, and how we're then just brought up to then say uthi these people know what they are talking about. They make you just live the ways that you've always done,
and you don't negotiate
and adopt that. But I don't think that's really the case. It's more now to then say that where are you from? Mina ngafunde Tegwane, and inxa wena sithi for argument's sake wafunde PE, and uzathemba uba nxa uqhatsha.
Obviously, my PE boys.
Yeah, because you're going to get someone from Watershed, you're going to get someone from PE because you understand them, you understand someone from wherever. And then umuntu weTegwane oyafunde ekhaya and stuff like that, what can they bring to the table? And so it's all that in terms of how people then perceive who they can trust when they're going to get into business with someone. It's also then how you communicate, because, granted, if I come from Tegwane, and which I do, and a lot of the stuff that I talk about now, I'm self-taught. I had to teach myself how to then get into these doors and have the conversations. Go into the interview room. They are going to outshine because they are taught these things in school. How your posture as you're entering the interview room, maintain eye contact with the interviewer. This is how you express yourself with confidence, A, B, C. No, we were just told, Nancy syllabus is for no A. And we did the maths, physics, chemistry, and got the A's. But you can't express yourself.
True.
So I think all that then just comes into it. To then say, I want to know, are you a good salesperson? Can I buy from you? Yes, you convinced me and we buy and we move on. And then you've got the lady who's selling at the corner who doesn't have those skills. The same sales skills that you have. And you see sometimes, even in town, informal sector is rife with these things. Guys that come, they want to sell a grater. He grates his carrots, he grates his cucumbers, he shows you.
Then
he's like, hold this thing and I'll show you, take something else. Like, okay, since you're holding this thing, I'll charge you so much for this. Those are good selling techniques. And that doesn't have anything to do, like you're saying, with the skin color. It's like you're just taken away. You get home and you ask yourself, why did I buy this thing? I don't need it.
You only probably use it once, like me, blender. Yeah. Like I bought a blender, I used it 1 week. I was like, I didn't think I wanted to be this healthy.
Yeah.
But I get you. You spoke about like communication and and speaking, right? And you are a very interesting communicator because, you know, I know you dabble in emceeing and weddings and stuff like that. And when did that bug hit you? Like the bug to actually, like even as I'm talking to you right now, you actually articulate yourself very well. Where did that bug hit you? And like, when did you start thinking, you know, I can be a Trevor Noah, you know?
No, that's an interesting one because I think when I got retrenched from my first job and then joined management consulting, I think that's when the light bulb came on to say, you know, people are making money from speaking. I saw consultants charge as much as $500 an hour to go and speak on content that I had prepared. Like, I'll prepare the content, he'll go and charge $500 an hour because he can speak very well. And this was quite interesting to me. So the light bulb went on then, but then I went into formal employment again. And, you know, this was for like 10 years. But then I also then realized that in that environment, now this is where the bulb then began to shine brighter. In that environment now, you'll find that there are certain things that used to happen, and you know, you'd get promotions, you'd get to win certain rewards within the organization and get to do certain stuff if you were known also. But it's on merit, you know, that you know you've done really well in a particular area. But then also sometimes it helps to be known. So I then made it a point then to then say that people are going to know me. You know, like in the organization, they need to know who I am. That when a conversation is had, someone should then say, "No, Patrick can do this." You know, so I then started speaking more. I remember the very first time I did my first Instagram live. I think I did that with Miss Red on Instagram. I had no idea what I was doing, and I was speaking to a seasoned presenter. But then you just put on a face. You put on a face, you get into character, you do it, and then you just move on with it and let the audience.
You started hitting the gym then, like. You started hitting the gym, or you hit the gym after you started speaking. Like, yo, I need to be like, I need to be a Mustebe, like, really, like, had you started hitting the gym then?
Okay, for me, gym has been on and off. I've never been consistent.
Like winter is the worst. Like, winter is the worst for me.
Everyone will tell you that no, winter is the best because you need to get your summer body in shape. But I've honestly been on and off with the gym. I haven't been to the gym now for the past 5 years, I think. So it's just going to be your home workout, your push-ups, your dumbbells. I haven't jogged in the longest time ever, so I'm not as fit as I may look. But I think that's it. Gym for me is a good thing. It does help us because, you know, like we're speaking right now about how people communicate, even just your appearance as well. You know, if you're going to go and stand up, you know, if you're told you're going to come and give a keynote address and you keep alluding to Vusi, if he walks in, you're like, he's got something to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so it's a whole package. People are going to look at you in the first 7 seconds and make an opinion before you say anything. They're going to look at you and they're going to judge and say, this guy can't tell me anything. And sometimes, especially in academic spheres, you find that's why most people will then, before you go up and present, they're just going to give like an entire, what you call it, like a brief profile of who you are, the papers that you have written and all those things. So people can then understand. No. You find that, you can then pull it off to go with your shirt untucked and can't hair because of who you are and your profile speaks for you. But for the rest of us, there has to be
some work done. You know, you mentioned something very interesting because I went through the same. Hey, you mentioned you being retrenched. Mm-hmm. I was once retrenched. Tell me how that hit you. Like when you get to work and they're like, you know what, guys? And then you are going like,
you know what, it's funny thing is I had a conversation about this just yesterday. Now here's the thing and I'll just speak about the retrenchment part, but what made it a bit easier for me is some counseling that one of the directors in the company gave me before. You know, there's a time when the company that I was working for was doing really well, super well, right? It was a stockbroking company back in 2008, making lots of money. And this is what then happens. We were complaining as employees about salary adjustments and we wanted more money. Then the director calls me to his office and he's like, no, listen, take a sit here. He's like, do you see the logo on that wall? That's the company logo. I'm like, yes. He's like, when I thought of that thing, I didn't have you in mind. It was a rude awakening. And it seemed violent. It seemed like it was confrontational in a way. But then if you think about it, he thought about this thing with whoever he thought about it, probably his wife. And I was not in the picture. He was like, how do we make money? We set up a company, we do this. If we then have to employ people as we go along, then so be it. But I want to make Patrick rich. No, that was never the vision. So when I then got retrenched, it was not personal, you know, and I say this with caution because a lot of people then take it really hard to then say, okay, this is my livelihood, this is my income, it's all lost. I've got a family, I've got kids, I've got all these people.
And I've given my
all to the company, then the company lets go of me. But you need to understand that companies have got shareholdings. It's not personal. When shareholders make decisions in companies to say, for the company to remain a going concern, we may need to cut down on our staff cost and stuff like that. It's not a personal decision that's being to say we don't want you anymore. No, they may need you, but the situation forces you to then go out. So as an employee now, there's that mindset shift that now needs to happen to then say that, okay, listen, I'm here for a season. I'm not the immovable asset in the organization. I can be moved around. So you get in, you join, you give your contribution, you make your money. Between you and the employer, there's a contract that exists. You've got a scorecard probably. I don't know what most organizations would use, but this is what you need to do, and we're going to pay you for doing that. And then when the time comes for you to part ways, we just need to part ways. So we need to be able to understand now as employees as well to then say that, I may leave the organization at some point, but what you then leave to is entirely up to us. We'll build our savings or build our life around city life, and then suddenly it becomes unaffordable and you have to relocate to Kaya, for example. But ekhaya akula muntu omaziyo, omakhelwane awabazi, izakhamizi awuzazi, you don't know who's there. Bona bakwazi kulo mntakazi bani osedrobheni, and then that's all they know about you. So it's how you then build the societal fabric that you then need to go back and cushion yourself with, be it with your relatives, ekaya, your neighbors, if you're staying in town, how you relate with them, so that if anything does happen and you do lose your job, you've got a support system that can then still help you with that.
Let me put you on the spot a bit, because this urban to rural migration is Zangena. I want to put you on the spot for a bit. Have you fired anyone, or have you retrenched anyone?
But no, I haven't. Fortunately, it's
because I'm like, if someone told you, I want to know, I wonder if you have been had the honor of reciprocating that to someone else.
Actually, no. I have
let go of.
I have let go of one team member before, but it was entirely different. I mean, the gentleman felt very entitled, and he wasn't performing at the time, and I think it was kind of letting the team down because of the way that it also joined the organization, joined a certain way, felt so entitled, was doing things that just didn't make sense to everyone else, and people, just becoming demotivated to say, how come so-and-so is doing this but getting away with it? So fortunately, at the time, everyone was on a short-term contract. No one was, fixed-term or permanently employed. So when time for contract renewal came,
that one stinks. I know that one.
We just need to part ways.
That's the trick in the book, right?
Exactly.
I don't think we'll renew your contract.
Yeah. So, but that when you do that, now you're definitely affecting someone's life. So it's never an easy thing. So I don't take it lightly, even when organizations are laying off employees. It's a very difficult decision to make. Yeah.
And speaking of we were talking about just rural to urban to rural migration, and you look around in Harare, you drive around everywhere, your buildings are just sprouting from left, right, and center. So imali khona. Ingaphi imali yakhona?
Imali khona phana ku-informal sector sikhuma ngakho. The money is there, but you'll find futhi ukuthi why people are moving from rural areas to urban areas is because there's a market. Uzathatha amatamatisi akho usuke lawa ekhaya uzothengisela town because the market is there. You'll just spend about a day or two on the streets in Harare and your tomatoes are sold. They're all gone. So everyone is flocking to urban areas because there's a market for whatever you're selling. But that's the trick also, because as long as you've got nothing to sell or to give someone else who can then give you money in exchange, then what's the point of being where you are? Because urban life then becomes expensive. You've got transport costs that you need to incur. You've got your utility bills. You've got everything that just needs to be paid for when you're in the urban areas. So if you then don't become economically productive in the urban area, it then becomes easy to relocate a kaya where you can then just do your small patch of tomatoes, your onions, your cabbages, whatever, on a small thing just for your consumption. And when those that are working in town are now sending you stuff, okay, they just know it's salt, cooking oil, maybe one or two other things, your tea or sugar that you can't easily get there, and it becomes easier to maintain. And then what I would suggest also is that the thinking that when people in the urban areas are supporting those eka, well, there's a drought now, so maybe that's aside. But when you then go into the field and you till the land, because that's where the livelihood comes from, and then you can support those in town. Now, we don't need to buy from the shops anymore. You've done your beans. You can now send to the guys in town. And there's that exchange between the relatives in the urban areas and those that are in the rural areas. But if we don't get along as families as well, that never happens.
And like, you know, like I've been seeing this whole influx, even like on online, I've seen like a huge number of people building in the rural areas, building those amazing properties in the rural areas, Starlink, everything is happening. Do you think that's the future? Because personally, I really want to retire Ekaya. I want to go off grid. I think this whole town urban life thing is not sustainable with the way this population is currently growing, particularly in the city.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a wise idea to actually?
I think it is. I think like when you're speaking about the time period that you're looking at post-retirement, what are you going to be doing in town? I mean, you've got rates. Rates are like high density suburbs, 200 square meters. You're looking at about, what is it, like $60, $80 a month on rates? Where are you getting that from in retirement? What's your retirement check like? So that becomes expensive, you know. So you'd rather stay Ekaya, for example, where you don't have all these expenses. And your $80 is now to buy your bread, your milk, your sugar, and all the things. And life becomes cheaper that way. So it really boils down to that. In the urban areas, there's just so much competition. Life is fast-paced. You can't sit here and relax. There has to be something productive that you're doing that's making money. You're always going to compete with the neighbor who has changed their car, who has now put solar roof panels, and you're still, you know, there's a blackout and you're still in the dark. They have done A, B, C, D. They put a perimeter fence with razor wire and all those things. And maybe both your neighbors have done so. And now yours is plain. And there's always that competition, but you don't find that kind of hustle, Ekaya. The life is a bit more serene. It's a bit more relaxed. There's no competition. You just live within your means. No one minds much. And if you have built the community well, then you're always there as support pillars for each other. You know, if one person is harvested well, then you stand to benefit also from their harvest, and you can exist in a community like that. I don't know if that's still strong, but I know growing up, it's exactly how we used to live.
You know, you must be Mfundisi, you. Because like the way you actually articulate yourself, I'm listening to you, I'm like, this guy can be canceling people and telling them.
Pastor, you the treasurer in the church.
And then what's one of the biggest financial mistakes you've made in your personal life, like over the past 20 years?
Hey, that one. When I say this and my wife's going to hear it now, and she's going to be like, I told you. And she keeps telling me I made a mistake then. This was back in 2009, I think. Stuff was running out of the shelves at shops and all these things. At a cousin of mine based in South Africa that decided to send a truckload of groceries over to Zim. And yeah, well, but he wanted to get into that business because he knew what was now happening back home in Zim. So he sends like an entire flour, cooking oil, salt, all the basics. And he was like, listen, can you sell this for me? And then we'll split the profits and then you give me back my capital and the like. But at the time, I was working for a stockbroking company. So, you know, we were making money. I mean, it was two callovers at the time. It was okay. So I look at the truck. I'm like, how much do you want for this thing? It's like, just give me $2,000 back then. I'm like, okay, that's fine. So I'm like, I'll take the entire truck delivery. In my mind, as in Bulawayo, then in my mind, I'll get back to Harare. I'll sell shares and I'll pay this guy off, and then we are square. So I took the whole consignment, distributed it to family, my uncles, aunts, grandma, everyone. Just
nice,
the groceries. And then so everyone was covered. I drive back to Harare. And then the governor at the time decides to suspend trading on the ZSE.
Wow.
Suspends trading on the ZSE. I'm stuck with the $2,000 debt, and I can't sell shares, and the money's not coming from anywhere now.
And the truck is disappeared.
The truck is, people have eaten the groceries. Things have been opened. The pasta has been opened. The rice has been opened. You can't tell people bring all these things back. So I'm stuck now with the $2,000 debt. And this was now a lot of money. You know, when you're making money like that every month and suddenly you can't make it, you realize that this really was a bubble. It could have burst at any time. And it has burst now. And it took me a while to recover from a $2,000 debt. You know, I got to a point where I had to sell the car that I was using to pay off the debt. It soured the relationship between me and my cousin. It just became something just totally wrong. You know, I'd get people visiting me saying, hey, listen, so-and-so came, said I should see you. He wants his money. Because he is in South Africa, he doesn't understand what's going on back home. And I'm trying to explain to him that, no, listen, this is what happened. It's like, no, I'm not having that. I need my money. Because that's a stable environment that he's in.
He doesn't understand.
Like the number of debt collectors that came to see me, they're just like, it was ridiculous.
you know, like I was talking to someone from Aussie like 3 days ago, and like some circular went around and whatever, and then he's like, Alex, how come what kind of country advertises money? Like for people outside Zimbabwe don't even understand the terrain that we're moving and everything else.
No, the dynamic we live in, it'll be a difficult one to get used to if you haven't been in it for a while. Zimbabweans, and I think this is why it's easy for us to adapt. If you go to an economy where things seemingly just function well, you just get it. And then you also get there and you wonder, so what hustle can I do? Because we're used to it. I mean, you wake up every morning and you grind. You think this is what I can. This is where I'm making my money today. This still has to happen. Or next week there's this coming up. Or there's this coming up. Not every country do you get people sitting and waiting to say, so what does monetary policy say and stuff like that. Some people don't even care about that. We sit and you want to know.
What are they thinking now? How do we?
Yes. So I think that then just helps us. So that for me would be the worst financial decision I made. If I'd listened to, then she wasn't my wife at the time, she was my girlfriend, but she had offered at the time to say, I can go to South Africa and I can buy the groceries for you. Just give me the $2,000, I'll do it for you. But then I didn't listen at the time. And then I bought them. Well, obviously because we're now reselling, the groceries were expensive, but I thought it's easy money. We can do this. But you can't plan like that now. You take a risk, but you do burn at times, so we need to be careful.
Like going back, circling back to like innovation, right? Like, is there a lot of innovation happening in farming in Zimbabwe currently? Is there a lot of innovation, and what's happening in that sector currently in agriculture?
Okay, I think there is a lot, but I must also say that a lot of the stuff that we're doing is that we're by more or less just catching up with what the developed world is doing. So you'll find that there are agri-tech companies that are coming up where guys are using technology in irrigation, technology in fumigating, identifying crops that have been infected with certain diseases and stuff like that. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that's happening. They've got sensors in the ground to detect moisture level of the sand and all these things. So when your pivot is moving around, it can tell that it needs to sprinkle more water in these areas than these areas. Where there's a whole lot of the water just drains quickly in the sand, where there's water logging. There's tech for all these things. And we've got young guys that are coming up with solutions for this. They've also got AI models that can detect infection in plants and stuff like that. Your tomatoes are infected. You just take a picture of it, you upload it, it tells you what it's likely to be and how you then remedy that. So there's a lot of tech that's coming up in agriculture. But the question is, how easy is it for the people that rely on agriculture to adopt these technologies? For your commercial farmers, it's easy, but they've got systems because they've got accountants in every farm, managers and everyone that runs these things. But for the lady that's doing her 2 hectares of maize or soya beans or whatever the case may be, how easy is it for them to then adopt that kind of technology, understand it, and then use it? Because a lot of the people also rely on the natural rainfall, and they don't have overhead sprinklers or pivots that they can then just say that, because I think any real farmer just needs to have irrigation. True. You can't rely on the rain and prayer. There has to be something that then happens physically on the ground to make sure that your crop will grow. If anything else happens, it's outside of the lack of water shortage. So I think, there is tech in agriculture, and I think it's being used quite well.
And with banks currently, are you guys like really investing in farming? Are you backing farmers, or you still saying no?
No. They are. Farming is a critical area that most, I'm sure, banks would want to look into. But you'll also notice that it's going to be for your commercial farmers largely. Your commercial farmers and your big farmers that can afford to put up collateral. You want asset financing, you want to buy a tractor, then it's going to be, is the farm in your name? Is the title deed of the farm in your name? Can you then bring that up or have another property? Because it's a bank, remember I said financial institutions are regulated. So you need to make sure that the loan is secured. All right. So that's the only problem that's there. But they are advancing loans to farmers. The smaller scale farmers may need to go to microfinance organizations now, where they can then say that, okay, listen, come together as a group of women, come together as a group of men. You've got this irrigation scheme in this particular area. Which farmers are part of that scheme? Then you fund them collectively. And then you know that when they come, you fund the inputs, because there's certain ways that microfinance companies would function. For instance, they might not give cash. They'll tell you that, okay, we're going to fund the inputs and we're going to pay the supplier of the inputs directly. Go and pick those inputs. You pick them up, then you go there together with the agri-techs officer. You make sure that the inputs are used for what they need to be used for.
All right.
So it's more involving now. You need to be on the ground. Inputs are dispersed. People plant. You are there as the loan officer. They have planted. You come back. You inspect later. And then there are also those weather indexed insurance policies that you can then open, so that when a farmer calls you and tells you, no, the maize, there's no water, the maize was burnt, you can verify that on the app and say, for real, there was no rain in Mount Darwin at this time, so the crop didn't perform.
So people have been defrauding like banks like that as well, saying
Because you could, but now people are aware.
tight.
Yeah, you get so the insurance for that will just cover mainly the inputs.
All right. You know, like it being November, right? Like it's a month where like men are celebrated and there's a lot of things around men, right? Tell me something like. What's your take on the current state of umuntu wesilisa out there? Like, do you think that we as men are doing better in society, and are we doing well in society? Not from a standpoint of like, are we doing well as in financially, but I mean, I'm talking mentally. I mean, I can ask you, when was the last time you cried? You got a loud voice. You got a very powerful voice when we talk in our society, and like, what do you feel some of the problems that men are facing silently and dying off silently out there are?
You know, you asked when was the last time I cried. The question, would society allow me to cry? Would the kids at home allow me to cry? Because this is the pressure that we put on men, or rather the pressure that has been put on men for the longest time ever, to say, you know, inyembe zinto zenzani.
Oh yeah,
you know. So you can't really see the tears of a man. You know, you cry internally, you bottle it up, and then you put up a strong face and you go out there and you do what you need to do. But then you find also now that the pressure has doubled up because of all this that then comes up, because society also is evolving and is changing. Women are becoming more empowered now, and much to the detriment of boys, I may say, because this is a conversation that's also going on right now. You get the girl child is being propped up at the expense of the boy child. So that dynamic is just shifting, and I think I wouldn't want to say it takes away power from men, but it also just makes you question some of the things at times, because I think it's not just a confused generation if you think about it right now. Because when you're you take a lady out, and there are adverts that show this even on the TV. You take a lady out and you want to pay the bill, and you want to pay because you're a man. And then they look at you and they're like, that's just so old school. You don't do that. You know, what are you saying about the lady? It now looks like disrespect. When I walk into the door, do I walk in and I hold the door for her to pass, or that's also disrespect? You know, where do we draw the line with, I'm going to treat you like a lady and I'm just going to be a man about this thing and do A, B, C, D, E. And then even the jobs, the sports, for crying out loud. Rugby used to be a man's sport. Women play rugby now. Cricket was a man's sport. Women play cricket now. So where do you draw the line with all this to then say that I will be a man up to here, and then you will be a woman up to here, and then we end it at that, and then these are the things that we then perform. And there are many reasons why this is happening as well, because you find that you know, in the past where men were breadwinners, women are rising through corporate ladders right now and equally bringing food to the table. So what really defines a man now is the question that you may then ask, to then say, is it your money, the size of your wallet? What defines you as a man? And I think this is where, as individuals, as the men that is, you might want to then find out what defines you, as what makes you a man. And it then goes beyond that, because forget the pressure in society that society may then give you. It's going to boil down to the home. You know, when you then get married and you're now married, how does your wife then treat you? Does she see a man in you or not? Because I think that's the most fundamental thing, because that's where society is made or broken. People can say what they want to say outside, but if I get home and my wife respects me, it doesn't matter. Home is home, and that's where I live. So it's my kingdom.
And you know, like speaking of home, right? I've had a conversation. There's a show that I'm producing currently, and I've had a conversation with different men, and I was asking them, you know, like, I've been asking this question, like, yo, tell me, when has your dad ever told you that he loves you? Hey. And I'm actually telling you, like, what do you mean, blood? Like, it doesn't, like, that. No. And it then made me wonder that, like, we're actually, do you know, like, if you look at how our dads raised us,
yeah,
we were raised like a battalion, like, yo, you're in the army or something like that. And I feel like we need to change that for the future general. We need to be the end of that, because I really, like, you know, like, I like just across the road from where we are right now, there was a young man, I think 3-4 days ago, who committed suicide, hung himself. And I hear those stories. I mean, every month I bump into a story like that about a young man who went A, B, C, D. What do you think these men are yearning for, or what do you think these men are going through? Even like globally, the suicide rates of men are like through the roof. Are they weak men emotionally that they can't contain these heartbreaks, or what's going on?
I think it's that shift, and let me expand it to just telling your son that you love your son, or being told as a child by your parents that they love you. It's like growing up. This is our era and before, and maybe even those that are a bit younger than us now. This is what used to happen. When visitors came home, what were you told to do? Go and play outside.
Yeah.
Right. When an adult was talking to you and you were seated, you'd have to stand up. You never speak to an adult also standing. If the adult you could, then you kneel down and you speak to them respectfully. And these are things, and this is culture, and it was respectful. We understood it. But you realize that what then does to you mentally now. Now you're at this side of life. Now you want to pitch your business idea to a team of investors. In your mind, the investors are the adults. And you're standing. Now they are sitting on a panel and you are standing. Already that defeats you because you were taught never to stand and address adults. So that messes you up already. Now, you're also told that you never answer back when a grown-up asks you a question. Sometimes it's rhetorical.
True.
Now, an investor is asking you based on your pitch. So what about this and this and this? And
They're just grinning.
You can't. It's because of the way that we're brought up. So there are all these dynamics. It's not just being told that you're loved, but it's the things that were ingrained in us as a result of our culture as well. To then say that these things you don't do when the grown-ups are around. Investors can't just walk out. So you can't then stand and network in any event.
And then you're told not to ask questions.
You don't ask those questions. You don't network when the grown-ups are. You don't play in the sitting room when the grown-ups are there. So now you're at a networking function and you're expected to then go and greet people and introduce yourself and find out what it is that they do. You can't do that easily. And then tie that in also with the emotional aspect now, where you're speaking about being told that you're loved. Those words never came easily.
We are Jalapa, we are Kogalapa. I think that's enough.
It's proof enough. Yeah. If I've done all this for you, now you can't even then tell your spouse, for example, that you love them because it doesn't feel manly enough. Maybe when you're dating, we're so European, and I've said that a lot of times. You're dating, you're so European. You buy flowers, you do all these things, you send them to your girlfriend and all that. Now you're married, like, nah. She brings the water, she kneels down, she has to wash my hands and all these things.
And then you feel sometimes, you feel a little, like as much as she doesn't do it every day, but you feel a little tickle. Okay, like, it's...
Ask any man, they'll tell you that. They might not verbalize it to their wives and say, I want you to do this, because they've never done it in the entire time you're dating. But it does a lot for my ego when she does it. So you'd want to see it happen. So I think it's just the dynamic that we grow up in.
And let's talk about and just wrapping up. I want to talk about like just men's health. You know what I mean? Like, I had to cut off sugar like over the past months, and I'm off carbs and sugar. I'm like on a crazy different diet because like I was told I need to lose a bit more weight. And it's out to they're eating this salt, these blood pressures are going. They're eating these mpandes that think they simbi some sanas and like and. Like I've always, even like Lami, like if I can't get out of bed, that's when I probably think, I think I'm sick now. I need to go see someone. And let's speak to that of men thinking that they are made out of iron. Like,
I could tell you something about that as well. And I'm just going to say it and put it out there. Recently I also went for a full blood count just to check everything, like literally just check my liver, check my kidneys, check. The main reason I went there was for my prostate. I want to get my prostate checked. So I was like, just check everything, And surprisingly, everything was okay. But the one thing that they picked up that I wasn't expecting was my cholesterol.
Yeah.
The doctor was shocked. He's like, your cholesterol is off the charts. He's like, you're just like a heartbeat away from a stroke or from a heart attack or a stroke. So it's like, literally, you cannot leave this place right now. I'm going to give you tablets. You're going to be on meds. Right. And I thought, no, doc, can I just exercise? It's like, yeah, sure. That's something you should have done. Right now, with this level of cholesterol, I need to put you on meds. And I function normally every day. I don't feel cholesterol in my blood. Right. So these are the situations that you then find in the institute. And this is what then happens to most people because we don't go for these checks. So if anything had happened to me right now, I was with Patrick just yesterday in the studio, then the guy collapsed. What happened? Cholesterol, got a stroke.
No, like when you say Uti just died, like that whole thing is remember like our dads, like it's not like unlike these days where people are doing shady deals and build in 2 days. Like tell them to and then roof out Wathi uqedwe wakho uzakahlala ngani just died.
You see,
But the person was sick all along, man.
and you don't know that, yeah.
And like I really appreciate and I'm grateful for the work that you're doing in our society. You're doing really, really amazing, and I would love to really give you your flowers while I can see you right now. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come through and sit with us. What are you currently working on? Where can people find you on LinkedIn? Where can people throw their CVs? Whatever. I think you can talk to that camera.
Okay, so I'm currently working for ZB. I'm the executive head for innovation at ZB Financial Holdings. People can find me on LinkedIn. I think that's the place that you can easily find me and see most of the work that we do, because at least on LinkedIn, we're only going to post the serious stuff. So you can find the work that we're doing, the innovators that we work with, the entrepreneurs that we deal with as well, the support that we give to these guys. We do have an innovation hub. So that's where it's easier for you to find me. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter. No, Twitter, no. That's X. I'm really on X these days. But you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, but that's just where I just post pictures for fun. LinkedIn is the main platform that you can find me if you need to discuss anything that has to do with work. So yes, innovation is what I'm working on right now. Entrepreneurship development and financial literacy, especially for entrepreneurs in startup companies.
And if you're getting married this December, or you just got Amapia somewhere, this guy is your guy for the MC. Patrick.
If you ask me to MC the wedding, it's only going to be the ceremony and not the reception.
No, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, man.
It's all good. Thank you,
guys.
for having me.
If you're inspired by this conversation, that was the intention. If you're offended by this conversation, you can do better with your life. It's been the Ball of Change out.